Hey, everyone. What is that brown stuff on the nose of all these tech executives out there? We're going to discuss it. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hey, everyone. It's Alan Schimmel. Welcome to our Wednesday before Christmas edition of Techstrong Gang. We've got a full house in the gang today. Some of my favorite people. Let me get right to it and introduce you to them. First of all, joining us, it looks like he's back home in Austin area, Futurum analyst, VI co-founder, Visible Impact co-founder, Guy Currier. Hey, Guy, welcome, man. It's good to see you.
Thanks. Good to be back on the gang.
Absolutely. Always great to have you here. Staying in Texas, we're going to hop from Austin to San Angelo, right outside of Abilene. Our own editor for Techstrong AI and Digital CXO and so much more, Amanda Rezani. Hey, Amanda, how are you?
Good.
Good to have you here, Amanda. Thanks for joining. Moving over from Texas, we're going to go up high. Well, it's early in the morning. I don't think he's high yet, but it's our Futurum VP for DevOps and security and analyst, Mitch Ashley. Hey, Mitchell, welcome.
Always a Rocky Mountain high. Good to be joining y'all.
Absolutely.
Today.
Absolutely. Good to have you. And we'll circle back over to Hudson, Ohio, right out of Cleveland. He's the man with the sports jacket.
You know, it's good to be back. I feel like I just saw you yesterday.
Stephen Foskett. Hey, Stephen, how are you?
Not in person, though.
Not in person, though. I wouldn't be seen with the likes. No. I'm not going to ask you about your email. I know it's a touchy subject. We'll touch on it later. But let's move over from Cleveland downstate to, upstate New York almost. Our Chief Content Officer, Mike Vizard. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Well, it's a balmy 60 degrees this week in New York, so who knew?
You know what? It's not a heck of a lot warmer down here in Florida. We've had the most miserable weather now for going on 2-3 months. And it's probably in the low 70s, but it's a windy, nasty, gray day. There's no sun, no joy in Mudville.
Yikes.
So you're not missing anything. That being said, though, let's jump into today's Techstrong Gang, guys. We got only 7 days before Christmas. I'm not going to start singing a song or anything, but it does seem like the tech industry is lined up on one knee with bags of gold in their pockets, ready to pay homage or bribe or whatever you want to call it to get in the good graces of the incoming administration. Makes me a little sick to my stomach, but Mike, I wonder what you want to say about it.
Well, it's kind of starting to feel like an episode of Game of Thrones out there. We're seeing all these folks coming in to bend the knee to the new king, as it were. The latest is the SoftBank CEO is pledging $100 billion investment. So that's a bit more than other folks say, like Meta or Amazon just said they were going to fund the inaugural dinner. So that's helpful, but it's a different kind of thing. But Guy, I'm going to come to you on this one because I don't know if you remember the CEO of SoftBank back in our Zip Davis days, but he bought Zip Davis for like $2.1 billion and then wound up selling it less than 3 years later for, I think, $460 million. And at the time, he made some statements about, this was going to be a 1,000-year investment and it was going to be this amazing thing. And he also made similar claims when he made some investment claims at the previous Trump administration. And some people are questioning whether he even has $100 billion to invest in anything. But what's your sense of what's going on here in Mar-a-Lago? And are we going to see more of these CEOs kind of showing up to bend the knee? And how many are bringing them cash?
Oh, more CEOs outside of tech, governments from around the world. So let's start with Masayoshi Son-san, our former CEO, like you said. I thought about that too. I'm not sure that $100 billion will actually be spent, or maybe that's going to be spent over 1,000 years. Who knows? I didn't dig into it. I think it's already a kind of a gift to the incoming administration. Actually, let me be clear. It's a gift to Donald Trump personally, our incoming president. And that's sort of it's a gift in terms of just making an announcement that sounds really good, that whether that money is actually coming in or not. Frankly, I didn't bother to investigate that part because I felt like the gift was already given. And on the other hand, we know for sure that there are millions of dollars being put into the inaugural committee or into this and that, indirect place where some of that wealth is going to go directly to our incoming president or his cronies or what have you. And similarly, like governments booked up the Trump Hotel in D.C. During his first term. I think you can divide all these groups, whether tech or not in tech, into three different types of individuals, people. There are those who are super psyched at the election results and super psyched and supportive, thinking of the Andreessens or the Thiels of the world or the Musks of the world, but on a lesser scale. All of these folks have their own reasons and their own political ends, and they are happy to, contribute money, make big announcements, all that other sort of thing. The second group would be what I would call people who are really unhappy about it and have political principles that they want to promote and not just promote their business or personal wealth interests. Those are the folks we're not hearing about right now who are not bending the knee and not contributing money. And then the third group are people who really kind of don't seem to care one way or another because with their wealth or power, they're above it all. But what they do seem to care about is going from wealthy to super wealthy or from super wealthy to extremely super wealthy, them, their friends, whoever else. And for these folks, and I'm kind of thinking of Mark Zuckerberg as an example, who I don't know what his political positions are particularly, and I don't think he's entirely doing it for himself, but I do think he's doing it for the future of his enterprise because our incoming president is famously transactional. He's very blunt and open about it. You give money to him or to his friends or what have you, or gifts in kind, like big announcements about $100 billion investments, and he will at least leave you alone, at least for a little while. It's purely transactional. That's the administration we're coming into. So whether it's Son with his announcement or some of these other billionaires with their $1 million, $10 million, $15 million contributions to Trump-associated organizations, it's for a transactional purpose.
2 words: shareholder value. That's the only reason people do these things, right?
At the risk of sounding uninformed, I'm not the most overly political, but isn't this sort of standard anytime an incoming president's coming in for company leaders to meet with them and align and sponsor different events?
I'm glad you asked that, Amanda. I'm glad you asked that. There was a time in this country where people gave a shit about whether or not their president was on the take. There was a time in this country when an incoming administration, not only the president, but the key people in the administration would have to put their assets into a blind trust so that they couldn't enrich themselves at the expense of the American people. There was a time in this country where the people in this country gave a crap about that.
The answer to your question, Amanda, is no. Prior to 2016, there was a lot of conspiracy and rumor mongering about how it was all hidden, but it was happening. And I would say that some of it was probably happening, but to nothing to the degree that we have had since 2016.
This is oligarchy in action. This is what this is. This is how an oligarchy works. Substitute Putin for Trump, and there's really no big deal. It's the same thing. Okay? I have my own experience with SoftBank, right? When I first met my friend Brad Feld, he was a general partner at SoftBank Venture Capital, and I did a lot of work for him in the SoftBank Keiretsu. And those were the days where someone could buy something for $2 billion and sell it for $400 million and say, oh, well. Those days are long gone. Yahoo isn't what it was, right? He owned a lot of Yahoo. He owned a lot of things. Not that we should take up a collection or cry for Mr. Sony. Glad his children and grandchildren will have enough money. But if he's putting 100 billion in, my question is how much of that's from China? Because the Chinese are the power behind him now. It's not the old SoftBank money. It's China money. Stephen, you disagree?
How much of that money actually exists? That's my question.
Well, I think there's 100 billion in China, and if they could use Sohn as a transit to get it passed and make nice with Donald Trump, they will.
And it is normal for businesses to try to curry favor with the administration. It's not normal for them to do it in ways that directly benefit the administration. Yeah,
with bags of gold.
Individuals
directly benefit individuals.
Right. There was a time. There was a time in this country because the inauguration ball committee was always a fundraiser, right? It was always privately funded. But you know what? Believe it or not, that committee used to have to file a disclosure statement, how much money they got from who and where it was spent. And if there was money left over, it went into some public good, it was donated to charity, something happened to it. Under our present administration, that money will be entirely used for nights at Trump hotels, golf junkets, or other things that have dollars finding their way into our president's pockets. This is a president who sells watches, gold coins, hats. I don't know. For all I know, he's selling bidets. He'd sell any. It is what the man does for a living. He's done it his whole life. He puts his name on crap.
And so why do you think it would stop going into the White House?
I don't think it would stop. Look, you can't blame him for being who he is. I blame the American people for just not caring anymore.
Well, that's clearly we don't care if that's, this is now it's now transparent, right? What a lot of what was already happening.
It wasn't to this degree, Mitchell.
Maybe not to this degree, but I think for one, tech leaders have learned the lesson of, it's bad to be on the wrong side of Trump in the administration. And what's towering over this we haven't talked about is tariffs. Everybody is concerned about the tariffs dropping on their part of the industry, whether it's a supplier to them or to them directly. Whether you're, Canada or Mexico, or you're a tech company in the U.S. So that threat has caused a lot of behavior of we're just gonna hit this head on. I want to make sure we're not going to get zapped in this or try to navigate.
I'm going to buy good favor like a good oligarch does.
And I would argue that, it's lining the pockets of oligarchs, but that doesn't happen directly. That happens through companies and investments and people that they do business with, right? So there's a lot of people who make out in that process. It's swinging contracts to Musk's way or reducing regulations that favor Musk, meaning his companies, not him directly, but it does impact him directly. I mean, how much has his gross wealth increased since the election? So I think it's all money motivated. I mean, that's what it's about. They wouldn't do it if it didn't matter to their bottom line, to their shareholder value. Period.
Well, let's
Mitch,
go to that other question, right? And here's the part that doesn't make any sense to me. Let's say I am a vassal and I'm going to come down there and I'm going to, cough up my billions of dollars. Well, my competitor will show up 3 weeks later with a bigger bag and also declare that they're a vassal and either get the same deal I got or a better deal. And to Guy's point, this is highly transactional. So I kind of don't see why everybody's playing the game, because there's no
Right. Look,
nothing in it.
Again, substitute Putin or King Henry VIII. This has been going on a long time. They divvy it up.
But so I think there's an alternative explanation, maybe an additional explanation to Mike's question. I think it's called the prisoner's dilemma, which is if you're the one who admits guilt or something like that, then you stay in the lockup. But if everybody admits it or something like that, they all go free. So I don't, I'm getting the philosophical term wrong, but The reason people keep doing this, even though it manifestly doesn't work, is because they would all have to stop, or almost all have to stop, in order for it to come to an end. And no one of them can believe that the others are going to stop. What do you get from the announcement of $100 billion investment, from the $1 million you're contributing? You're getting to stave off a potential problem for another day. Well, longer than a day. But you really don't know. That's part of the whole game, is to keep you off balance and uncertain about what everybody else is
Chaos.
looking
And
to
that's
do.
what we'll have for the next 4 years. I want to say one last thing, and then please let's just shut this down because my blood pressure is going up.
Wasn't this topic your idea, Alan? I'm just kidding.
Yep. But let me just say one other thing. Shame on you out there if you're giving me the false equivalency of, well, this is the kind of stuff that always went on behind closed doors, and now it's just more transparent. Bullshit. Not to this level, not to this arrogance, not anything like this. This is, yeah, there was insiders. There's always been insiders. There always will be. This is government for hire. This is oligarchy at work. This makes anything else that came before it pale in comparison. And if you don't recognize that, or you don't want to recognize it, and you're just going to give it, it's the kind of stuff that always went on, then you get what you deserve. You get what you deserve, a government for hire, a government for sale. God help us. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Modernize your business to fuel innovation and elevate customer experiences. With the Builder Community Hub, AWS and its partner network provide essential tools for transforming applications and infrastructure to fully leverage the cloud. Discover free trials, in-depth demos, and essential resources to empower DevOps engineers and developers to deliver value faster and more reliably. Visit the Builder Community Hub to learn more.
All right, folks, we're back. And yes, we're talking about outages again. And there's a story over on Techstrong ITSM you might want to check out, where basically everybody who's surveyed in there, or at least most of them, seem resigned to the fact that there's going to be more of these major outages that we saw this year. And it's becoming maybe too much of a standard operating procedure. And so I'm going to ask Stephen straight up, have we somehow or other become either A, overly dependent on a handful of services, and B, or we just kind of resigned to it and have we become complacent?
Can I pick C? No. Yeah, we are overly reliant on a handful of services. Absolutely. The entire, you got to love that XKCD comic of the entire internet is reliant on this one little thing that's maintained by a part-time guy in the corner. It's so true. And it's the same with these large companies, whether it's PagerDuty or CrowdStrike. We realize just how reliant we are on the success of a big collection of very big, very important services. I don't want to go to B, though. I don't want to say resigned to it. That's not the right word. I think people are being more realistic now. You look at the survey results, 86% said that they've prioritized security at the expense of resilience. In other words, they're recognizing that you cannot be completely secure. You cannot have complete availability. You need to be resilient. And that's actually a positive result. And in fact, I think that's a very realistic approach. If you just go in assuming that everything's going to work, and then when it doesn't, you just throw your hands up and scream, well, that's not going to work. You have to have let's just say multiple, hosting providers, multiple network connections. And not only that, but, you have to be ready that sometimes even those things are going to fail and try something different. We face that all the time with Tech Field Day. We've got multiple backups, and we got a backup to the backup and a backup to the backup to the backup. And I got another one in my backpack just in case. And even so, we sometimes have outages and failures and stuff, because that's the joy of trying to produce an event on the run. The same thing happens with enterprise tech. The same thing happens with all the rest of us. I mean, as you threw it at me here, and as we mentioned yesterday, My email's been out for a couple of days because we're doing a migration. It's not an unexpected outage by any means. In fact, we were ready for it, and that's why we did it over the weekend. What we weren't ready for was 900,000 email messages and that we have to wait to flow through there. And so my email's been out. But I got another email provider. I've got other ways to sign in. Most of the accounts that we have two owners, and so I'm able to still sign in. It's not about being ultimately highly available. It's about being resilient in the face of problems.
Yeah, I think anytime you have technology, there's going to be glitches here and there. It's about being prepared to handle them.
I think
I
it's a
think
pendulum swing of, the balance of costs of working with multiple vendors. And if you do have buying power by consolidating your purchasing, not everybody does. There's also just business continuity, resilience that you were referencing, Amanda. Those decisions, it's a risk that you take, and you can't blame it just on the provider. I mean, yes, if the provider has continual bad incidents, and at some point you're going to say this is not working, we've got to do something else. But that's part of what you sign up for. I mean, it's part of putting your big person IT pants on and saying, this is what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, here's the risks, here's what we do to mitigate it. We have all options. If something that happens, if this affects our business, guess what? It's going to change quickly. We're not going to take very many of those outages before we're making a move. CrowdStrike's experienced that. That's just one, of dozens. About Delta airline customers, right, from that outage. So I think it's just part of the responsibility of tech leaders to make those decisions. And you know what? Sometimes they're not the best. You got to react and change when you need to.
And I remember being on this show and we were talking about the CrowdStrike incident when it happened. I think Alan predicted in a few months' time it was all going to blow over, and it has. So.
Yeah. So I've got a.
I was on that show.
You were probably there, and
Did you
I
think
was
it was gonna
right.
blow
And
over?
I was
the
on
Delta
that show, but
incident was the CrowdStrike incident.
I wanted to ask Amanda and Mitch for their perspectives on something. So we're talking about these single points of failure, so to speak, or these services on which so many other things depend. I mean, the Windows OS is something upon which so much productivity in the enterprise depends, and that's what was affected by the CrowdStrike incident. So that's an example of what I'm talking about. What I wanted to know, Mitch or Amanda, and both of you, what is your sense of the state of the practice and art of application architecture right now? Because these are all stacks, and there's frequently seems to be this sort of lack of understanding as you pass through layers of the stack, or lack of recognition of how much the app is dependent on the layer below. And how little influence it may have. And that's where zero trust comes from as a principle, right? Is this idea that you can't trust any particular network or service you're connected to in terms of security, so you develop around that, or you use tools that allow you to sidestep the requirement to trust. Now we're talking about trusting for resiliency. It might be nice to extend the concept.
So
It's just I don't
this.
get the sense that there's a lot of this sort of thinking about the entire stack and the application architecture.
Well, jump in, Amanda, and then I'll comment. Then you can, Alan, because you directed the question.
I'm sorry.
Well,
Amanda.
Mitch, you're the more technical one, so you're going to have a lot better answer than me, probably. So I'm passing it to you.
Oh. All right. Well, I think one of the things that's changed substantially is how much we rely on SaaS services and things that other people are operating for us, right? To your point, Guy, when it was our stack and we're assembling all the vendors, the database provider, operating system, whatever, VMware, whatever it is that we're running across that entire stack, it's kind of our job to make it work. When it's outsourced, that's what it is. When it's in a third-party application, whether it's your mail, whether it's, a database service, whatever it might be, AI thing, you name it, you're depending upon them to deliver to some level of service. Now, we all know those SLAs are pretty limited in what you can hold people accountable to and what the paybacks are to it, but it's really voting with your dollars on how you move. To your point, Guy, some of the stack's visible, though, and some of it's not. right? I know where our points of entry, what we're dependent upon, and you build a trust, you build a relationship with providers, or you don't. And some people are just not easy to work with, and you move on. So I think that analysis is both a technical one, but also a business relationship one, and how that affects your business. That'd be my answer. Amanda was whispering in my ear. I've got my plug in, so thanks for your help on that one, Amanda. Okay, Alan, back to you.
So Guy, I'm glad you analogized it to security and zero trust and these things, right? You know, one of the core principles in security is CIA, right? There's three things. The A in CIA is availability.
And people
That's
forget
what we're
that that's
talking
part of
about.
security.
But it's core to, I mean, for as long as I've been in security, near 30 years, CIA has been core, right? That's the three principles here. And A is availability. If it's not available, it's not secure. Right?
One of
You
the
know-
first questions in the CISSP exam, right? It's
Yep.
got to be pretty early on.
So
I
availability
would
is,
say that I would just say that CYA trumps CIA, which is cover your ass.
are we talking about Trump again, Mike?
I was prepping that joke.
No,
I had-
but A is availability. But let me tell you a quick story. Back in the late 90s, 2000s, I also helped put together a company that was a Miso-san, a SoftBank company, right? Called Interliant. Eventually be called Interliant. It had other names. And I learned a valuable lesson. It was basically, at this point, we were a hosting company before we became an ASP, and then we transitioned into an ASP, application service provider. And we had to do SLAs. And we made such a big deal when we moved from what we call 4 nines to 5 nines, right? We're all familiar in the tech world with that term, 5.9 availability. And we thought, man, that's the cat's meow. Who could ask for more? Who could ask for more than 5 nines of your, you know, at the time, Lotus Notes was the hot stuff. We were hosting Lotus Notes, 5 nines availability. Well, you know, even at 5 nines availability, do you know how much downtime you have a month with 5 nines? Mitch, you know this, you're a data center.
It's like 8 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, it's 8 minutes. I know that too from.
Yep.
Yeah.
So nothing's ever perfect. There's always going to be unforeseen
Well,
outages. It's
Yeah, 8
resiliency.
downtime a month for an email, for Lotus Notes is different than 8 minutes of downtime a month for an OLTP or potentially a supply chain.
Yes. Well, we
occasion.
didn't just do Lotus Notes. Lotus Notes was, you know, there were ERPs. It was mission critical. And remember, Lotus Notes wasn't just email then. It served as an early application server, if you will, right?
Yeah.
That your apps ran on.
Yeah.
So, but you know, 5 nines, we were charging a fortune for 5.9 SLAs. Really, I mean, compared to a lot
And
of
you
other.
should. You need to. Yeah, you need to. That's.
Well, we still weren't profitable, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But you know,
Fortune wasn't enough.
well, it was the .com. They didn't care about profitability. We went public we didn't make a dime. But anyway, this is as Mitch said, this is the life we've chosen, or as someone said in a movie once, right? This is the life we've chosen. And in IT, you're going to have unforeseen outages and unforeseen stuff happening. It's you know, reboot, Control Alt Delete. You know, it's classic stuff. And you know, you know, if you don't expect that, I think you are unrealistic and a novice. And I'll leave it at that. Stephen, we haven't heard back. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
I think part of the thing, though, is you got to kind of let the business folks understand that or find a way to communicate that. Because I think as the IT person, you get blamed, even when it is, to Mitch's point, some SaaS provider out there, and they're the one at fault or what issue it is. But sometimes I think IT people, you know, try to play hero, and they're always like, you know, we're going to make it all work and it's all going to be great. And then when, you know, the outage comes, they're like, oh, I didn't think that would happen. I'm surprised. And, you know, I think they should be more realistic in the conversations they have with
Well,
business
I
people.
think there's expectations to be set.
Right. So that when Steven's email is down, he's not as pissed off because, well, he kind of knew that might happen.
Yeah,
Well,
and I think that unfortunately, IT people do tend to have a bit of a God complex when it comes to the success of IT systems. It should work, therefore it will work. We tend to underestimate things. We tend to not communicate the risks of things. It is absolutely on us to do a better job of communicating those things. Also, I want to make sure that I'm not saying that availability isn't important. Just because companies need to be prepared for to switch to something else, and prepared for failure and ready to jump to another system or recover in some way, that doesn't mean that you don't try to build highly available systems. It doesn't mean that you don't try to make things that are going to be reliable and supportable and that are going to function. Quite the opposite. You do want to make sure that you're building those systems, but you also want to build in the contingency plan that says, what are we going to do if this thing fails? And there again, I think that IT people generally fail. And I'm speaking for myself here. I was a systems administrator for many years. I once took out every Texaco gas station. And
you admit it.
I do admit it. Don't work there anymore, and I haven't worked there for 30 years, so I think they've forgiven me by now. But I took down all the point of sale terminals. That was a hard lesson for a very young IT guy to learn. But I did learn that lesson, and what I learned was you have to make things available, you have to make things redundant, you have to build supportable systems, and when failures happen, you have to be ready to switch to a different system. In this case, switch to the manual credit card readers so that people can buy their gas all over
knuckle
the United
buster.
States.
Yep.
And good communication is always key when the event that there is an outage or a mistake.
That is really important, right? And that's something I think people have learned the hard way. Hey, we got to take a break though, because we're running over. We've got one more segment coming up, so stay with us. Mitchell had to jump off, but you don't have to. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
All right, folks. As Alan mentioned, we're kind of winding down the coverage for the year, and it's always a time to look back and say, what was some of the cooler things that happened? And in our case, we started working more closely with the Futurum Group, and we met the folks at Tech Field Day, which Stephen runs. And Stephen's been on this show, and we have been on his shows, and it's been a great partnership. But I wanted to ask Stephen, just looking back over the year, what are kind of the most memorable things from the Tech Field Day events that kind of stand out at you and are kind of the test of time? Are they profound as they were maybe when you first thought about them?
Well, that's a big question, man. So I've been running Tech Field Day now for 15 years. We just passed our 15th anniversary of the first Tech Field Day event in November of 2009. And it's been incredible. It's been an incredible experience for me. It's been my full-time job that whole time. And also it's been incredible for me to see how these things have affected the industry and the people in the industry. And I don't just mean the people who go to these events, because one of the things about Tech Field Day is that it's public. It's very, very highly public. We live stream on Techstrong TV. We post the videos on YouTube. What I like to say is most people, probably most of your listeners, have watched a Tech Field Day video without knowing it. And that's intentional. I don't want it to be about Tech Field Day. I want it to be about the technology. I want it to be about the company. If you Google almost any company in the enterprise IT space, especially IT infrastructure, you're going to find a Tech Field Day video. It's going to be a deep dive presentation, demo, discussion. There's going to be a bunch of people there to keep things real and ask questions and really represent the audience at that table. That's why we call them delegates right from the very beginning, because they're there to be you, Techstrong Gang listener, at the table. And sometimes it's literally people like Guy or Alan or Mitch or other folks that you've seen here on Techstrong Gang. And sometimes it's folks from the community, other analysts, other independent writers, and so on. Anyway, we've done a lot of these events over the years. And so I just kind of wanted to look back. One of the things I've said previously on Techstrong Gang and in other places is that we intentionally don't have a theme to Tech Field Day, but there's always a theme that emerges. And if we look back on 2024, what are the themes that are emerging? Well, I bet you guys can guess one of the big themes of Tech Field Day in 2024. Anybody want to shout out what one word? Alan.
Starts with an A and ends with an I.
It does. It does. I was trying to think of another word that I could throw in, but I just can't. AI, absolutely. AI is everywhere. We started doing AI Field Day a couple of years ago. This year, we split it into AI and AI infrastructure. But truly, networking Field Day is AI Field Day. Edge Field Day is AI Field Day. Mobility Field Day. Security Field Day. They're all AI Field Day because everything in the industry is going in that direction, and that's what companies want to talk about. And no surprise, our most watched presentation videos were all around AI. So if we look at what we did this year, we had a presentation from Intel in February about deploying AI on Xeon CPUs instead of using GPUs or NPUs or something like that. That's our most watched video of 2024. It has just a tremendous amount of viewership. We also, the second one is from Google about running applications, AI applications in Google Cloud. And one of my favorites here is our fourth most watched video is actually a video from a customer talking about using AI technology in greenhouses in Canada to better improve crop yields, literally picking the ripe tomatoes. Who would have guessed that one would be the fourth most watched video of the year? It's a great presentation, and it's a great example of using AI in a productive way. And for me, that's really what it all comes down to is how do we make AI not just be a toy, but how do we make it productive? And that, I think, I'm going to guess, is going to be the theme of 2025 when it comes to AI. It's not going to be about who's got the biggest model or there's a new Anthropic or OpenAI. It's going to be all about inferencing on-device, AI-based applications, using this technology in a productive way and in a way that isn't burning down the rainforests, but is maybe growing tomatoes in Canada. That would be great. Now,
yeah, in fact, there's a new reactive movement. I'm sure you're familiar with, Stephen, the SLM, small language model, driven, I think, in part by the supply of giant systems with tons of compute and then the lack of supply, I should say. But nonetheless, I think that's going to be truly productive and fruitful in the next year. So
I think those SLMs will be more accurate anyway. So I think they'll lend themselves to the use cases that people really want to do. I think a lot of the stuff with the LLMs that we've been playing around with, we will kind of chalk that up to experimentation, but I'm not sure that those are the things that are driving the business value.
I've had the privilege to join a few of these tech field days, including an Edge field day recently for Stephen and the tech field day team. And what's really been, I think, so helpful and why I encourage everyone watching this to go check them out too, is how practical and sort of hands dirty the whole thing is. These are folks, they're from the vendors, but what they're presenting generally, they are people who are themselves working with customers on practical solutions based on their technologies. And so outside of hearing what the vendor has that's cool, which is cool, you hear about how these different techniques are being applied to your peers, by your peers, sorry. And how they are making things happen. And that's been so helpful in AI where there is so much heat and not quite enough light.
And that's one reason that I'm so excited to see these client practitioner, customer type videos be right up there in terms of viewership, because it shows that that's what people are hungry for. They want to know how this stuff is going to be practical. And to the SLM point, another big trend in AI that we've been talking about, especially in the second half of the year, is agentic AI. The idea of having AI agents, generally smaller AI agents, doing things on your behalf. And that has been another key topic. We've seen a lot of that. I actually gave a presentation myself on agentic AI. We've also, as Guy mentioned, talked about using AI at the edge on lower powered devices. Our most viewed Ignite talk, which is where we turn the cameras around, let the delegates talk, is actually by me talking about what is an AI PC, which again, I think that talks, that's a question on people's minds. Is this thing real? What does it really mean? And it's really about, making these things productive. Now,
I have an AI agent for you that would be really awesome. It reroutes your email when it goes down.
let's do that one. Piling on. Now, there was another interesting aspect of the year, though. So we also talked quite a lot about the effect of technology on people's jobs. And if we look on the Gestalt IT side, in terms of our podcasts, the Tech Field Day podcast specifically, there's a far and away leader in terms of the most listened to podcast of the year. And I think that it talks to the tenor of the time. The title is "No One Wants to Be a Network Engineer Anymore." And then the second most viewed one is "Network Engineering is a Dying Career." Now, these, I think, talk to the fact that people are very, very concerned about what's happening to us and our jobs and our careers in the face of AI. I do have to say that we pick the titles to be provocative. In fact, we pick the titles before we record the sessions because we want to make sure that the people are on topic, and also that it's something that they can feel passionate about. Those were two very passionate topics. We got a lot of pushback from the audience that, yeah, I want to be a network engineer. But the truth is it's challenging for companies to fill these roles. It's difficult for people to step up and say, like, that's where I want to focus. I had the same experience, as a storage engineer for many years. Nobody wants to be a storage engineer anymore. And so I think that that's an interesting sort of flip side to this whole discussion of AI applications and agentic AI and language models and all this. What does that mean for me? What does that mean for my career? And a lot of us are asking, what does this mean for my career? How am I transitioning from, being an engineer to being whatever this new thing is? I'm curious, what's your reaction knowing that one podcast was not just the most viewed, it was 8 times as many views as every other thing that we recorded?
Hey, have you heard of this thing called a platform engineer? It's really hot, and I don't know, Alan. You might have.
But seriously, look, guys, Stephen, Mike, Guy, Amanda, you're a little younger, but we're all of an age when we probably first got into IT. Probably one of the hottest things you could have was a Novell network engineer. You were Novell certified, right? Remember that?
Sure.
That was gold.
I did that, actually.
That was me.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Right?
Yeah.
You were a Novell certified engineer because Novell owned the network. Internet, TCP, everything comes out. Cisco certified engineer became the new Novell, if you will. But again, it was about network engineering. As a matter of fact, when I first got into security, 70%, 80% of the folks that were security people were really network people, and they became network security people because network security is where the action was at the time. And so it was still the network. It was still the network people running the show. It started with Wi-Fi and this transition from network engineers to Wi-Fi network engineers, if you will. But, I don't think it's AI that killed the network engineer. It wasn't radio either. Well, maybe it was wireless radio. But the fact of the matter is who runs networks anymore? I mean, it's few and far, but don't get me wrong. There are big offices that still are wired.
I think there's a lot of your audience members that are saying, wait a second, Alan.
I think a lot of my audience members are on Wi-Fi. And yes, there is a small place where that whole nexus comes together, but it's nothing like it was when we were younger, right? When it was Novell or Cisco or stuff like. I mean, think about some of the names, the great network product, devices, Juniper Networks, Cisco, 3Com.
I just think going forward, what I am is going to be less tied to a vendor, right? I'm not going to have this business where I'm going to be a Novell person, a Cisco person, a VMware person, Oracle person. I think all those things wind up being career limiting. And I think that people should think of themselves as, I am in charge, or I have a set of skills around a particular horizontal function, whatever that may be. But it seems to me every time you hitch your wagon to a vendor, you get a great ride for the short term, but in the long term, you wind up getting run over.
It really comes down to adaptability and your drive to upskill and continuously learn.
And Amanda, that's something looking back at 2024, we're LinkedIn connected, obviously, and I always see you taking new courses, new skill sets, just dabbling out in what's available out there. And it goes back at the DevOps Institute, we used to do our upskill report, and we would talk about T-shape for people versus broom-shaped people, and in terms of skill set, it's not what they look like. And it's an important, I think, for anyone out here. Even, Stephen Corey sent out a thing on all of the podcasts that we're going to be in 2025, right? We're combining,
Yep.
We're all throwing in our Tech Field Day and Gestalt IT podcasts and our Techstrong podcast and some of the Futurum podcasts that we handle here at Techstrong. And Corey said, well, what's your kind of area of expertise so we know where to put you? And I said, well, I definitely am in DevOps. I'm definitely in security. I'm definitely in cloud native too. But hey, I could talk about AI transformation. And I started thinking, Mike Vizard could talk about all those things too. And Guy can talk about most of those things too. And Stephen, you can too, though, you fancy yourself an infrastructure person, but you're comfortable talking AI and everything else. In some respect, we're all sort of broom-shaped people, not T-shaped. That's my advice to people out there, is try to be a broom, not a T.
And I'll point out too that in contrast to all this, some of our other most viewed videos were videos that were deep dives on networking and storage and infrastructure to support AI. So Arista talking about, building networking, deep, heavy duty networking to support AI workloads. Our most watched video organically was a presentation by Oxide Computer talking about their incredible big hardware. I mean, you'd think that that's out of time. Well, apparently there's a lot of people interested in that too. And then another flip side I want to point out too, we do our weekly news show on Wednesdays, and just a quick shout out, today's episode is going to be a retrospective of the IT news of the year from Gestalt IT. So watch for that on Techstrong. The most watched episodes of that are all industry navel gazing. Intel announces layoffs. The HPE acquiring Juniper. Broadcom's changes to VMware. So there's a huge amount of interest in those kind of really table stakes, upset it kind of stories as well. And I think that also says a lot about the audience and the interests of the audience too.
Absolutely. Guys, we're about out of time. It's been a great Techstrong Gang. I hope you have all enjoyed it out there. As Stephen mentioned, we've got some great Tech Field Day. Some great Tech Field Day content immediately following as part of our Techstrong TV schedule. As always, we'll be back tomorrow with more fresh Techstrong Gang takes on all kinds of great stuff. But until then, on behalf of Guy and Stephen and Amanda and Mike and Mitch and myself, have a great day, everyone. You've just watched Techstrong Gang. Hey, everyone. It's Sunny.
And share.
Ladies and gentlemen, tech enthusiasts and future gazers, gather round. The biggest, boldest, most mind-blowing predictions for 2025 are coming your way at the Predict 2025 virtual event on January 9th.
Oh, Sonny, you're predicting something again. Last time you tried this, you said Laserdiscs were the future. How'd that work out for you?
Hey, Cher. Not every prediction's a hit, you know, but that's why we've got the real experts this time. Top analysts, visionaries, and tech leaders sharing what's going to rock our world in 2025.
So no Sonny predictions this time? No flying toasters making a comeback?
Very funny, Cher. But seriously, we're talking AI breakthroughs, cybersecurity game changers, the future of DevOps, cloud innovations, and so much more.
And what about my favorite prediction, a smart mirror that tells you how fabulous you look every morning? That's real innovation.
You're already ahead of the tech, Cher. But if you want to hear the really big stories in tech for 2025, you've got to tune in on January 9th. The event kicks off at 8:45 a.m. Eastern and runs until 2:30 p.m.
And the best part, it's all virtual. No stuffy conference rooms, no long commutes. Just grab your coffee, your laptop, and join us from anywhere in the world.
You know what else? It's not just predictions. It's insights, strategies, and a whole lot of fun.
Well, Sonny, if this event is as good as you say, maybe they'll finally name a technology after you, like the Sonny 2.0, predicting your jokes before you tell them.
That's a good one, Cher. But the real joke is if you're missing out on this. So don't miss Predict 2025.
That's right. Mark your calendars, January 9th, 8:45 a.m. Eastern. Be there or you'll miss the biggest scoop on the future of tech.
See you at Predict
2025.
Be there.